Welcome back to another episode of the Living Well podcast. I'm here with my host, David. We're going to talk a little bit more about how you can get some more out of the supplements that you're taking. Maybe you're taking some supplements currently. Maybe supplements are a brand new thing for you. Me and David are going to dive into this and talk about how you can optimize your supplementation today. David, let's start this thing off with a bang. What do you got for me?
All right, I think our easy intro, one supplement that everyone takes worldwide, the most culturally accepted thing to be addicted to, caffeine.
I am heavily addicted to caffeine. This is a
You know,
wonderful topic.
I love my coffee. We take pre-workout on top of that. Many people are kind of stimulant freaks, so to speak, but I kind of want to talk about how we can get more out of it, right? So like caffeine goes in and it makes you feel energized, right? But it more so is like kind of masking that whole depleted feeling? So it's not just, oh, the caffeine gives you a boost, but it's like it's compensating. And in that, pretty much it's going through a receptor called the choline receptor. Don't want to really get into all the tidbits about that one.
Yeah, all right. So caffeine, right? Let's talk about why people are consuming caffeine, right? Everyone's tired, and that's telling us something about our body. So there definitely is a reason for needing the caffeine in general, right, David?
I mean, yes and no. Like if you have some imbalanced energy levels, the caffeine's there to make up for that. And outside of that, it's kind of just giving you performance enhancement, right? It's not necessarily taking away the lack of energy, it just kind of blocks your capacity to feel the tired. And through that, you feel energized. But pretty much one thing that caffeine does do is it will end up draining some of the salt from your body. And that salt's used in communicating between your neurotransmitters. So your brain needs sodium. That way it can say, one neurotransmitter is going to say hi to another. And caffeine's depleting that. So if we add like a gram or two of salt to your coffee, for instance, like why is sodium in your pre-workout, that's going to end up helping improve the communication between those neurotransmitters. And at that point, you get more out of your coffee.
I think it's a big misconception out there that salt is really bad for you, and that all the sodium is gonna make me you know gain weight and this and that, and I think people just really have a big misunderstanding of what sodium is and why it's important. And there are some people out there that do have certain medical conditions that they probably shouldn't have higher amounts of sodium, but in general, sodium is great. It's fantastic for your body. Can you touch on that a little bit more on why sodium and salt is actually good for you?
So overall, I'll just say most people have imbalanced electrolytes, and that kind of brings us back to the whole low energy feeling. So like as a baseline, if we cover pretty much your minerals in your body, so like your potassium, your magnesium, some sodium, all those things go into your energy output. And if we have that box just kind of checked off, then for instance, your caffeine goes miles further. And it's not necessarily, oh, all I need to do is take an electrolyte supplement and I'm good. You still need to have the proper amount of water and everything. But if you're hydrated well and you have the minerals that you need, such as our beautiful friend sodium, iodine, some magnesium, some potassium, you'll end up feeling better, performing more optimally. And then when it comes to like that coffee that you're going to get an hour after you wake up on the way into the job, you won't necessarily feel a hard crash because most of the time that caffeine crash isn't necessarily, oh, you're depleted and now I'm tired and I'm feeling that wave of the tired the caffeine was pushing off hit me. It's all right, you're coming down from the caffeine. You just excreted all of your electrolytes because the caffeine is draining them from your neurotransmitters. And now you're just depleted, you're dehydrated, and you don't necessarily feel the best. So, like, a key point with the electrolytes and sodium, hydration, and as long as those bases are covered, like a little gram of salt with your coffee, that's gonna make the caffeine go way further.
No, for sure. And I think it's an interesting relationship between caffeine and sodium. And I'm not personally too read up on this. And I think that you can probably touch on it a little bit more. Let's wrap it back to go back into to caffeine, right? Why are people taking caffeine in their pre-workouts? Why are people so addicted to energy drinks and coffee, pros, cons, stuff like that.
Okay.
So let me toss it back to you. Um, so caffeine, right? This is, a chemical that a lot of people have addictions to, right? Like I drink tons of energy drinks all the time, maybe 2 or 3 a day. And I'm also taking a little bit of caffeine with my pre-workout in the morning. I think generally for most people, staying sub 400 milligrams of caffeine is kind of a general area that you'd want to stay, dependent on, your body weight and your stature. Like myself, I could probably tolerate a little bit more caffeine than the average person because, I'm 6'2", 230 plus pounds. I could maybe push it to 500 milligrams of caffeine, but the average person, they generally want to stay sub 400. Would you agree with that? You disagree? What are you thinking with caffeine intake there?
So I will say, as a general rule of thumb, sure, exceeding like, let's say you're like Savannah size or my girlfriend size, like you're about of a 130-pound chick. If you're going up to 400 milligrams of caffeine, you're definitely going to feel a little overstimulated. You might feel some adrenal fatigue, especially if that's a regular thing for you. And that's just going to lead into even more of that burnout feeling where you're going to be like, oh, well, now I need more caffeine. And your point on the whole body weight thing, we kind of touched on this a little bit in the past where it's like with creatine, for instance, that applies to a lot of things, right? You can't look at your 2000 calorie diet model and percentages to apply to a 4,000 calorie human being, right? Not saying you need double of everything, but you can certainly tolerate a little bit more or even need a little bit more of certain supplements. That way you're kind of hitting that baseline and getting the effect that, every other person will get. So, for instance, like a guy like Chris. Chris isn't, a small dude. I know we sit there and we rag on our boy.
Yeah,
All right, all right.
I
But
think he's small.
I don't think the 600 milligram being, oh, that's fine. I'm not gonna experience too much adrenal fatigue like you or I can tolerate is gonna apply to Chris. But he can certainly walk up to that 4 or 500 and feel pretty fine most days.
Yeah, for sure. And I think caffeine intake is something a lot of people don't pay too much attention to, specifically coffee drinkers. A 12-ounce cup of coffee, you're roughly looking at around 120 milligrams of caffeine. And that can vary on whether you've got, a shot of espresso in there or one of these crazy high caffeine Brazilian coffees out there that people are drinking now.
Don't get me started. Those.
Oh yeah. Great. I'm not much of a coffee drinker. I like my energy drinks, but people that drink coffee on a regular basis, it's very common, especially in the workplace, right? If you work in a business environment, let's say, where everyone's huddled around the coffee machine, pounding coffees all day long, you might not notice that you're creeping up on a very high level of caffeine in your daily intake
Mhm.
just by pounding some coffees.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then again, you'll experience that adrenal fatigue and there's I kind of look at it this way. If you're getting the most out of what you're intaking on that, you're not going to need to go back for the other cup of joe. I understand the social aspect, especially in an office building. It's like you'll see someone at the water cooler, for instance. You're going to have a quick chat. But like when it comes to getting your 150 milligrams of caffeine from that cup of coffee, we can sit there and improve on it. Like we already said with the making sure your minerals and electrolytes are in line. That way the caffeine actually does its job and it's not lowering the communication between our neurotransmitters. Like that's excellent. But if we want to take it a step further, like so choline in the body, actually. So caffeine increases the expression of catecholamines in the body, and those go in, they want to interact with your choline receptor. Now there's a couple ways that you can kind of get some synergistic benefits by adding in one or two supplements. So, for instance, alpha-GPC, that's one of those nootropics that goes in through that choline receptor. And since it's pretty much trying to modulate how it's working, and when you have high amounts of those choline receptors, like it feels good after you have that energy drink, right?
Oh, it feels great. I wake up in the morning and the first thing I crave is let me go to the fridge and get myself a nice bum energy.
All right. So that spike on the catecholamines pretty much increases and modulates how your body's using dopamine and norepinephrine and all those wonderful things. Now, you take something like alpha GPC, and since alpha GPC is another cholinergic substance, it's going to kind of try to occupy that receptor too. And since it's modulating our dopamine, pretty much your neurotransmitters are going to be operating at a more efficient level, right? You'll have a better reward and response system. So it's going to make that caffeine go the extra mile, right? So instead of it just being I'm now more attentive and focused, I'm going to retain some of what I'm attentive and focused to because there's that boost of dopamine, right?
Mhm. All right, David. So alpha GPC, it's something that I currently consume it in some of the pre-workouts that I take in the morning. I'm aware of it. I know that I'm taking it. I know that it's a nootropic. I know it helps me with focus and motivation in the gym. And there's some other really cool nootropics out there that are getting a lot more coverage in today's world. They're being talked about. They're being put into more supplements. People are taking them for different reasons. Whether that's in a work environment for mental recall, or I know even like gamers, they're taking these alpha GPC and these nootropic supplements to really help them lock in on whatever they're doing. So let's touch on a little bit more of that stuff. Why is that something that's included in a lot of these pre-workouts? And I know that you can take it on its own as a supplement. Is this something that's worth adding into your routine?
So brain science end, it's helping your brain communicate more efficiently, right? So your neurotransmitters are able to react faster to one another, communicate better, and it's essentially modulating that for you. So it's gonna go in through that choline receptor just like caffeine wants to, and it's gonna see that you have some caffeine if we're talking about it in the aspect of pre-workout. That's gonna help both of them kind of go into the receptor at a more steady rate. And on top of that, alpha GPC itself is going to modulate how your body's using all that extra dopamine that you're making. So pretty much your reward system is going to reward you in a even more efficient fashion. So when it comes to like strength and performance, you get that neurotransmitter benefit of me signaling and recruiting more muscles for my deadlift, for instance. But like in that gamer aspect or a workplace, you can focus on that task and feel a reward, a better feeling of euphoria once you accomplish it, right? And then that's going to help reinforce those habits. So it's one of those things where, let's say you want to take 300 milligrams with your energy drink in the morning when you're getting to work, it'll help you lock in for those sales calls, for instance, and then your brain's going to say, well, that pattern was good. Let's keep it up. Let's reward myself even more.
Interesting. So I could see alpha GPC being almost an alternative. You see a lot of people in a business or work environment taking Adderall, whether they're
Mhm.
prescribed it or not. They do it because it helps them lock in and accomplish a lot in one sitting. And especially if it's not something that you're prescribed, maybe it's not the best idea to go that direction. Do you think alpha GPC could be a supplement that could kind of replace that for a lot of people?
I wouldn't say replace, but let's say you are that person that's considering, wow, I need a heavy stimulant because I'm not getting enough out of that caffeine that I'm used to taking every day. That'll help. And let's say you're one of those people that's taking a bunch of caffeine daily and you want to avoid those crashes. The alpha GPC won't put off the crash. Again, we already touched on how that's your minerals and electrolytes typically getting out of balance. But there is other forms of caffeine. There's decaffeine malate, which kind of is buffered so it releases slower into your body and kind of provides a more steady uptake and less of a crash because of that steady uptake. The spike is lower, so then the plateau isn't as hard, the drop isn't as hard. So something like that alongside alpha GPC can definitely help, or and I can't say replace because if someone genuinely needs a prescription medication, you need your medication. There's only so much you can do. Listen to your doctor. I'm not your doctor. But if you're that guy that likes to drink the shit out of energy drinks like Jack or, loves his coffee, loves his pre-workout like me, what's gonna be best for your adrenals and your body long term, you know, the alpha GPC alongside caffeine. And there's also some other amino acids that you could even take alongside that that'll help, like L-citrulline, not L-citrulline, like L-theanine and L-tyrosine.
L-theanine is one that's becoming more discussed as well. I typically see it in a lot of sleep supplements, but I also see it in pre-workouts as well. How is it that L-theanine is included with something that's going to wake you up and also help you go to sleep as well?
So L-theanine kind of helps provide this calm focus, right? So the calm mood support side is how you can kind of leverage it to fall asleep. I take 100 milligrams before bed every night just because it helps with deep REM sleep. It has this certain interaction with alpha brain waves that will, I can't explain all the methodology on that one. It it in effect will help in that caffeine induced state as well as that restful, let me get deep REM sleep state. But consider we're talking about how to get more out of our caffeine. Pretty much in this instance, through GABA signaling, it's kind of helping your body be able to task switch. So let's say I'm like working out and we're doing a superset. That L-theanine is gonna end up letting me be able to focus on, all right, I just gave 100% to that compound lift. Now I'm gonna go do my superset. I can still give a good amount of focus and attention to that and still have my mind in the right framework. Or for instance, let's say you're handling a sales call and all of a sudden, all right, I get off of this, I'm writing my email to get back to this person. I have one of my prior calls calling me back and I don't even remember who the hell it is. I don't remember what we were talking about, what I was trying to hook them up with. You get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like, it'll help with that quick memory recall, and pretty much it also can help prevent the crash because of that kind of stable mood support that it provides.
Gotcha. So, in dummy terms, right? L-theanine is going to give you a calm level of focus. It's going to help you with mental recall and staying on task,
Mhm.
but also can help calm you down before sleep. It's not something that's going to make you tired necessarily or wake you up, but it's going to give you a calm level of alertness.
Pretty much, and on top of that, again, it's more so alongside the caffeine, we get that synergistic benefit from the alertness, right? So if the caffeine's increasing our alertness, and then this is also able to increase our alertness, and it has that nice tail end benefit of less of a crash just because of how it's modulating everything. It's nothing but a win-win synergistic benefit right there.
Mhm.
Again, having it in your diet regularly when it comes to that post-workout, you don't wanna stay in that hyped up stress state, helps you transition out of that stress state really quickly.
One thing that I keep seeing that has L-theanine in it is a lot of people do, Zins or other
The ultra
the
pouches.
pouches, right? I see these ultra pouches that are coming out that are an alternative to Zins with no nicotine in them. Or there's another one called Set that's the same thing. It's an alternative lip pillow, right? As they call them. Good because people are doing the Zins and
Mhm,
they a lot of times they do them at work for focus, right? And they're trying to get some of that nicotine, but nicotine is highly addictive, whatever method you decide to utilize it with, whether it's smoking a cigarette or hitting a vape or popping a Zin in. Um, I see that becoming more and more common. And a lot of these people that are trying to stop nicotine are going to these set or these ultra pouches. And one of the main ingredients is L-theanine.
L-theanine, I've looked at the ultra pouches, so I believe it's L-theanine, L-tyrosine, alpha-GPC, and caffeine. So it's actually kind of funny that you brought that up. And for instance, like the L-tyrosine, you know how like our L-theanine kind of helps with stress support. The
Mhm.
L-tyrosine is even more stress support. That way you're able to like focus, right? So it's a precursor for dopamine, and if you're getting that uptick by the caffeine and you have what the caffeine's taking to make the dopamine with, like, you have the precursor for that, you have more building blocks to make more dopamine, and then you have the L-theanine and the alpha-GPC modulating that dopamine, so it's almost like you get this kick of energy, and it's smoothed out, it's not just, "I'm trying to stare through a wall," it's
Mhm.
like, "I have full attentive focus right now."
Gotcha.
And that's literally what they're capitalizing on because that's why people like nicotine.
Mhm.
It is a cholinergic substance, which is kind of our topic, right? Caffeine's cholinergic. Our alpha-GPC is cholinergic. The L-tyrosine and not L-citrulline, our L-tyrosine and L-theanine have synergistic benefits alongside that. So, like, honestly, not to say that not to knock nicotine, but those pouches are a great alternative. Now, if you want to keep the nicotine in the equation, that's a whole different beast.
Yeah, because nicotine is a tricky one, right? Because everyone has this association with nicotines that goes, the first thing you think about is smoking, whether it's smoking or vaping, which obviously has a bad connotation for health. Um, and it's known as a very addictive substance, but there are some benefits to nicotine, right?
There's actually a, sad to say, shit ton of benefits to nicotine when it comes from a neurological perspective. It's actually really good for your brain. Again, through the choline receptor and how it's interacting, it kind of like it spikes that dopamine, so you hit your reward system, right? And that's going to make you want to focus even more. And we're kind of talking about how like people can get addicted to that, right? So you want that little feel good feeling, and popping the lip pillow or hitting your vape is going to give you that quick fix. Now, I'm going to go with I don't know if I can quote the analogy that Dr. Andrew Huberman used, but Dr. Andrew Huberman's a fan of all these cholinergic substances that we've touched on, and he pops Zins, believe it or not.
Mhm.
He's a big one for Zins, but it's not like it's a daily thing, not like it's a every 30 minutes thing. Like if you were to Jack, if you were to sit down and try to read a research paper, that's not your cup of tea.
No.
If I'm trying to now associate that with a positive benefit, and I want that extra little kick to kind of give it my focus and attention, that's one way that we can do it by adding in a little bit of nicotine. Wouldn't be a daily thing, wouldn't be something that you would want to have be habitual. But let's say it's going to be a high stress induced task that requires some extra focus, a Zen's not going to hurt. Now we take that stack that we've already talked about with like caffeine or DEET, caffeine malate, and some good minerals and electrolytes at its core. And then we layer it with the alpha GPC, L-tyrosine, and our L-theanine. That way it's kind of a smooth energy that we're not going to get a hard crash off of, tons of focus. And if you really want to get advanced with it, you spike it with a little bit of nicotine. Like that's your CEO cognitive stack, if you want me to be honest.
All right.
If you want to feel like you can run the world, oh my goodness. Now, and if we want to talk about one thing that lifters love that also goes through and modulates our dopamine and our energy levels, make sure you hit your 10 grams of creatine daily and then try all of this.
Let's go. I'm all over the creatine.
Like,
All over the creatine. I get my 10 grams every morning.
yeah, and the neurological benefit from that and the energy levels and performance, you might not even want the caffeine.
Yeah, so creatine obviously is the most researched supplement on the market, and it's been studied for what 30 plus years of the benefits and the helps that creatine will provide. And a lot of new stuff is actually coming out about creatine. Everyone always associated it with like, oh yeah, meatheads in the gym. I remember back when I first started taking creatine in high school, people are like, oh, you're taking steroids. Uh, it's funny now because everyone's taking creatine right now. At least
Yeah.
everyone should be taking
What's
creatine right now.
hilarious is if you dial it back and you look at it, now all those people in your age bracket when you were like, "Oh, I'm taking creatine. Oh, you're on steroids." All those guys that are like, hell, even 5 years younger than me, they're all, "Oh, I'm on 4 or 5 different peptides right now."
Yeah, the peptides, that's a new wave that's kind of coming in. And we can definitely touch on that.
No,
But
but
that would be a whole episode to talk about
that'd be a
peptides.
whole that'd be a couple, honestly.
That'd be a fun one. We'll have to dive
That
into
could
the
be like a
peptides.
peptide per. But
Yeah.
creatine, again, everyone knows about get your 5 grams in.
Mhm.
And your 5 grams is gonna cover muscular bases for most people. And some people you might get that neurological benefit. But there's been a bunch of new research that shows that 10 to 20 threshold, that's where a lot of people need to be.
Yeah, so what I keep hearing right now is you take 5 grams of creatine, that'll support the muscle, and then you take 10 grams of creatine if you want to support, the intellectual benefits of creatine, right? Or you could go beyond the 10 grams of creatine is what you're saying.
Yeah, so like again, like that 10 grams for you and I, that'll satiate our muscles, especially like because we're larger individuals, we need over the 5 for our muscles.
Mhm.
And that's where it's like, for instance, a bodybuilder that wants the neurological benefits. If I want the neurological benefits, I should take another 5 on top of the additional 5.
Mhm.
So like 10 to 15, I'd be getting increased neurotransmitter rates, better energy levels, pretty much everything that we want. And, the reason why most of us drink coffee,
Yeah, absolutely. Let's give the listeners a quick breakdown on how creatine helps in the muscular sense, in performance sense, and then we can dig into the intellectual side of things as well and how it's assisting you there.
All right, all right. So, pretty much after it breaks down into our body, right, and we fully start absorbing that creatine, it ends up going into phosphocreatine, which is the way that your body can actually put it into a usable form. That phosphocreatine goes through the cell and it increases the ATP production. So, your energy making cycle, right?
Got to get that adenosine triphosphate.
Yeah, and pretty much in the context that we're touching on it here with how we get more of our out of our caffeine, if caffeine is increasing our pretty much demand for energy, well, creatine is one of those ways, just like with L-tyrosine, that we can go in and increase the supply of those things that caffeine wants, right? So if caffeine's going to spike our dopamine and it's going to end up increasing our energy levels in a sense through that dopamine spike, if you have more energy that you can make on a general basis and you're just going to get more out of it, right? Just like if we have more of that building block that becomes dopamine, we're able to get more out of it.
Okay, cool. So we know how creatine works now, right? It's going to help with ATP production, which ultimately turns into your energy. That's going to help you, push a little bit further in your workout. Uh, Do you know exactly? And I'm not sure if you do know this. I don't know this personally. That's why I'm asking. What is it about creatine that's going to help you on the intellectual side of things?
So again, energy. Energy is the currency of your body, right?
Mhm.
One of the organs that uses the most calories, so energy in your body is your brain. We're increasing that output. And again, if we can get past the greedy muscles, because your muscles see the creatine and they're like, oh my God, we just trained. Give me, give me, give me, give me. Well, I need more energy. That way I can rebuild. I need more energy for the next training session. All those good things that your muscles, your organs, your bones are going to scream because, well, if the brain's operating, the brain's operating. We need to make sure that the rest of us is operating. Once we satiate all the plebs or our body, then the brain will soak up the rest of that. And again, if we're increased energy, we're going to have more neurotransmitters firing. And on top of that, as long as our minerals are good, your brain's already functioning quite optimally. It's just one of those layered things where it's like after you beat the satiation for the muscles, the creatine's going to give you the energy benefit, which might provide some of the clarity that you want in the first place, which is why we're taking caffeine. All right. You still need that energy. You take some caffeine, you add your salt, you make sure your minerals are good. You'll be able to get the most out of that caffeine. The creatine's there, adding some support. All right, I'm still not getting enough out of my caffeine. We want to add in some L-theanine, some L-tyrosine. Still not getting enough out of the caffeine. Alpha-GPC. Still not getting enough out of the caffeine. Maybe a lip pillow, because delivery system matters if we're gonna touch on the nicotine, right? And that's really a situation dependent one. But as an overall daily stack that, you know, how your mom would end up benefiting from.
Again, with my mother, I thought I told you to leave my mother out of
That
this.
was Chris that said that. And again, both are lovely ladies. But if we want mom to not be stressed out, to have good energy levels, to perform good, mom's daily stack could look something like this, right? So, like 10 grams of creatine, couple grams of salt or just a good electrolyte mix. Then we go into our caffeine. So maybe 100 to 200 milligrams of caffeine or decaffeine malate, however you want to go about getting that. Then we'll go into our L-theanine, about 200 milligrams of that. Go into our L-tyrosine, anywhere from 500 to 1,000 milligrams of L-tyrosine. On top of that, you can have about 2 to 600 milligrams of alpha-GPC. The actual low end minimum threshold for efficaciousness is, I believe, is around 300, but our maximum end is at 600. And then again, I don't think anyone's going to be in such a stress induced, focus necessary environment that you need the nicotine. But if you're that person that needs that extra little oomph, a lip pillow here or there might help.
All right. So it sounds like we've kind of broken down a really nice energy stack for the day, um, that really can apply to anyone.
Anyone. And it's kind of just to prevent you having to go back for that extra energy drink, that extra cup of coffee. It's not we need more stimulants. We just need our body to run good energy wise and mineral wise to begin with. And then we need to get the most out of whatever stimulant we're introducing through supplementary.
Awesome. So I don't think any of these supplements are a requirement, right? But if you're looking to maximize your energy, I think this would be a great stack to utilize. You know, if you're a person that needs to add the nicotine in there, delivery method is everything, right? It is an addictive substance, so caution while using it. Don't overdo it. But in general, this sounds like an awesome stack that you could utilize to get some more energy out of your day.
Oh yeah, and as with everything, hell, you can prevent a lot of stuff by just time on, time off, right? Before you give any of this a shot, why don't you just take a couple weeks of no caffeine, let your adrenal glands reset, and then, all right, start with the baseline, your minerals, your creatine, and go from there, you know? And on top of that, most of this stuff that synergizes with the caffeine, like the alpha-GPC, L-tyrosine, and L-theanine, you can take those on their own and still receive benefits, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think if we were to give a recommendation, I would definitely start with the creatine, and then everything else from there is, just a little bit of a boost. So that's what we got for this episode of the Living Well podcast. If you want to give this stack a try, drop a comment, let us know how it works for you, and we'll see you on the next one.